My name is Sean Walsh. I'm the president of the Douglaston Civic Association and the host for tonight's meeting, Save One Family. And I want to welcome you all here. And our remarks are going to be short.
Louder, please. Louder.
All right, can you hear it better?
That's the back.
No, you don't hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, first, I want to welcome all of you and ask you to, there's some coffee over here if you want, an open cash bar, if you need that. After we discuss what we're doing here, you might need that. In any event, we are all aware of the governor's plan back before the November election to do ADUs, basically to allow you to use basement apartments and build structures on your own property. We objected, a lot of us objected to that. It was pulled out of the budget. It did not come back until after the election. It's now in the governor's budget. Now we're asking all the elected officials to remove it, not negotiate on it, but to remove it from the budget and stop this nonsense about getting rid of one-family homes. Yes, there is an affordability problem that everyone faces. Our children face it, okay, who live in the neighborhoods. The issue here is not to dismiss zoning or safety rules like the mayor wants to do with respect to basement apartments, giving amnesty, giving economic credit so they can put basement apartments in with no fire exits, okay? We've seen people die in Queens, we've seen people die in flooding and fires, and we do not want to see that anymore. The question really is up to the government. In the last 4 or 8 years, we've never seen them work or find or some way solve the housing problem until the very end, when they're up for election. The question is, why is the land so costly? It's because land prices are going up. So unless you remove the cost of the land from any affordable housing, it's going to cost more. So if you come into this neighborhood or any of your neighborhoods and rip down a house and build up 2 houses, it's going to cost more than the original house was there, the starter house that many people live in. So this is really a fraud. This is a myth. This is an attempt to give the real estate industry a boom, a lot of money, give construction people a lot of money, and not refocus on building affordable housing, as been done by Ed Koch and Freddie Ferrer in the Bronx years ago in the Bronx, restoring it. It can be done. So I'm going to move on now. With,
Uh-oh.
Lost it? Lost it? Let's see if
Is it lit up?
No?
Yeah, there you go, you're back.
Sort of where I think it's dying.
One, two.
Okay, let me also just say that we have a great deal of thanks to Paul Graziano, who we engaged and several others engaged to do a zoning study and to study these plans back before the November election. And I'm going to introduce him, and then he's going to introduce everybody else as we go through this. And we thank you, Paul, for your work on that. And this is a non-political issue for us. It's bipartisan, but we're trying
I got a battery coming.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let me just step off. Paul, do you want to come up here? And I'll
Sure.
get your battery.
Hi, everybody. First of all, you can all hear me, right? Yeah. Okay. My wife says I have a resonant voice, whatever that means. So thanks everybody for coming. This is a turnout. I mean, I expected this turnout, but it's really tremendous, and you know, you all should be, not to sound cheesy, but you all should be giving yourselves some round of applause. This is very important. Many of you know me, a few of you don't know me, or you know me only through hearing about me or what I've done. But this isn't about me, and it's not about us. It's not about you guys, it's about all of us, right? So basically, for the last few years, we've had a series of threats that have come to us from our own government. Our own government has done this. First, it was just in the city. That was 2 years ago, when the former Speaker of the City Council, Corey Johnson, came up with his ill-fated Planning Together, which was, I wrote an article that said, Planning Together will tear us apart. It was a terrible plan that would create a city planning commission above the city planning commission. And that city planning commission would force every community in the city to increase density every decade. They also wanted to eliminate single-family housing in the city of New York. And for those of you who are not from the city, and I know there are quite a few of you here today from Nassau and Westchester and elsewhere, we have 15% of our land is for single-family zoning, 15%. I'll talk a little quieter now. Is that better? Can everybody hear me? Hi, Theo. Sorry, it's my son. So basically, the city wanted to eliminate single-family zoning, make every community board increase every 10 years. We organized the entire city against this, literally. I was one of the people who did that. There were other people who did it as well, but we met with community boards, and the community boards all fought against this pretty much unanimously, and it died. And we went, wow, great, done. Then the governor came up last year and stated her housing plan, which in the State of the State address was a very simple statement, which was, we're going to get rid of outdated land use laws to increase housing supply. And you know, I'm a urban planning and land use expert, and when I hear those words, you know, for a housing nerd like me, it immediately makes me very concerned. So I looked at what she proposed, and she proposed to eliminate single-family zoning across the entire state of New York. And she wanted to allow what are called accessory dwelling units, ADUs, to be built on every single-family property in the state of New York, and no local governments would be able to stop it. Removal of what we call home rule. Home rule, for those of you who don't know, is enshrined in the New York State Constitution. This is not something that a governor or even a legislature can just willy-nilly get rid of, but indeed she tried. She also wanted to give blanket amnesty to all illegal conversions in the city of New York, which is the bane of many of our existences in our city. And in addition, all Metro North and Long Island Railroad stations outside of New York City, this is last year, would have had to create what are called transit-oriented development zones, which would upzone every one of those areas. So again, we organized, I put together a statewide coalition called Save One Family New York, which is, I'm one of the sponsors here, and we put it together and we got our electeds to turn around on this, and they got her to pull out almost all of it before the deadline, which is what's called a 30-day amendment. I don't want to get into the weeds here, but she left in the part about the blanket amnesty. We had to have that pulled out at the very last day of the budget negotiations. So we went, okay, great, done. And then this January 7th, she came out with a plan arguably worse. This plan is to increase development and housing in every city, town, and village and county in the state of New York every 3 years, similar to that Planning Together cycle. And if you don't meet those numbers, a new state board will allow development to locate anywhere they want. Multifamily house, your local zoning won't matter at all. In addition, the blanket amnesty for illegal conversions in the city once again, and more importantly, the transit-oriented development not only would affect Long Island Railroad and Metro North, but all subway and railroad stations in the entire state that's controlled by the Metropolitan Transit Authority. So to a minimum of 50 units per acre. Now, this is within a half-a-mile radius of each of these stations. So one of the reasons that we had it here today, and I know this was hard to get to for some people, but we did it because we had people coming from Westchester and Nassau and other places fairly central actually. But I want to everybody to see what a beautiful neighborhood this is, right? That zone comes right up to this property from the Douglaston train station. And I just wanted people to understand, right now we live in a zone here, well, I don't live here, but those people who live here, 7 units per acre. So 50 units per acre is more than 700% increase from that number. So what I ended up doing when I saw that was I started putting together studies over the last month. I did it for Yonkers, I did it for St. Albans and Rosedale and Laurelton and Douglaston and Little Neck and also the town of Oyster Bay. And the numbers were staggering. The governor announced that she wants 800,000 new units to be built in the state of New York over the next 10 years. But if you add up all of the stations, just the transit-oriented development, it's over 3 million units that could be generated there. And it would not be, there would be no rule over it. Because again, if the municipalities don't do it themselves, the government, from the governor, will mandate it and come up with their own zoning for you. And just to give you an example, in this area, within these transit zones, there's approximately 3,000 units of housing today. There would be a minimum zoning for 18,000 units. In St. Albans, there are currently a little under 4,000 units, and it would be close to 20,000 units, and similar to Laurelton and Rosedale as well. And in Nassau County, where one assembly member who I worked with, he has 10 Long Island Railroad stations with 7,000 units, it would be 140,000 units. So this is, to me, this is existential. This is an existential threat to our communities. And as I said, this is as nonpartisan as it gets. This is us, civic people, and elected officials who support us, and everybody else who's a concerned citizen. We must stop this, and we must stop this permanently, because this is not the way to govern. The way to govern is to work with communities at the local level. If the government wants to, if the governor or even the city or the federal government wants to give what we call carrots or incentives, we're all happy to work with that. But to mandate density with no rhyme or reason is insane. And I've used this word, bonkers is the word I'm using all the time, but really, this is not appropriate. It is not appropriate. It is a Shelley Mayer, who came out against this 2 days ago, she's a state senator in Westchester. She said something very smart. She said, it's a sledgehammer approach to something that needs a needle and thread. And that's exactly what this is. Localities know what's best for them, and we should be the ones to make those decisions. So I will be here, I'm going to be emceeing this, and I'm going to start calling up people to speak, but I'll also obviously answer questions and we'll give some other details. So the next person who I'm going to ask to come up here is the president of the Queens Civic Congress, Warren Schreiber.
Thank you, Paul. I want to thank everybody for coming out here today, and I want to thank Sean Walsh, Douglaston Civic, and Paul Graziano for putting this together. So I'm going to be brief because we all know the challenge before us and the threat to our communities. The Queens Civic Congress strongly opposes Governor Hochul's housing compact proposal any place in New York State. Any place in New York State. There are no exceptions. We stand in unity with everyone here tonight. The housing compact for New York State does not consider the unintended negative consequences on residential neighborhoods throughout New York State. Governor Hochul's proposal will allow developers to bypass Euler and our community boards, eliminating public input. Transparency in zoning and housing will be a thing of the past. Legalizing basement apartments and accessory dwelling units, rather than creating more affordable housing, will result in dangerous, substandard residences for the most vulnerable. Transit-oriented development will overwhelm critical infrastructure, police, fire, and medical care. The New York State Housing Compact is not a rezoning. It's a poison pill that will destroy residential neighborhoods. I urge everyone to return to the drawing board for a plan that actually solves the housing crisis. And I just want to add that in my experience, the most dangerous words that you can ever hear from the government, part of what is their arsenal of weapons when they want to keep us in place, is mandate and mandatory. That's what they use, and that's what this is going to be. This plan is going to be mandatory housing. It is going to be a mandate from the governor. So let's all get out there, let's fight this, let's get in touch with our elected officials, and let's make sure this doesn't move forward. Thank you very much.
I want to let everybody know, first of all, thank you, Warren. There are 60 people downstairs waiting to come here. We have 150 people here, which is incredible, from every corner of the metropolitan area. So I just want to let everybody know, and they're very frustrated because they'd like to be up here. The next person is Nora Haagenson. Nora is the president of the Nassau County Village Officials Association, which represents 64 villages, all 64 villages in Nassau County with 475,000 people. And we are not allowing elected officials to speak here. We are acknowledging them, but Nora represents the entire county of Nassau. So it's a different situation, and she's representing an association. So thank you, Nora.
Thank you, Paul. And good evening, everyone. It's so nice for me to see so many people from Nassau, Summit, Suffolk, I hope, and Queens, Westchester. This issue affects all of us. It is truly worse than we think. And what I'd like to give you basically is the position that the Nassau County Village Officials Association is taking on this issue. I personally, because I'm also the mayor of the village of Baxter Estates, which is one of the 5 villages in Port Washington, this affects us as well, and this is something we really, really must act on and get our legislators to. This bill must be pulled from budget and must be stopped. But anyway, just to tell you, and as Paul said, but the Nassau County Village Officials Association was established in 1925, so we are almost 100 years old. We represent the 64 incorporated villages in Nassau County with 475,000 people. That's a huge voting bloc. We are the government closest to the people. We have direct insight into our communities and their individual nuances and characteristics as we interact with our residents on a daily basis. The NCVOA has an established history of working in partnership with all levels of government. For any partnership to survive and thrive, there needs to be open communication, the sharing of information, and input into the decision-making process. None of that has occurred. This has not occurred with the affordable housing proposals championed by the governor last year and not this year. We were stunned and disappointed that we were not contacted about an issue that is not under state control, but is rather the jurisdiction of villages, towns, and cities. Instead, we were told that this New York Housing Compact would be a state mandate for all villages, towns, cities in New York State. Quote, New York faces a housing crisis, stated the governor. Every community in New York must do their part to encourage housing growth, she continued. The bill, however, would take away home rule, which is Article 9 of the New York State Constitution, which guarantees villages, towns, and municipal entities control over local zoning, property affairs, and government. The Housing Compact Bill proposed by Governor Hochul imposes specific building requirements, target dates, and penalties for non-compliance by municipalities. This mandate is a very slippery slope indeed. There are many reasons to be concerned. Consider the significant impact on parking, traffic, emergency services, utilities, an increase in school population, thus adding to the already high tax burden for residents, and an environmental impact as well. There was no prior attempt to solicit our involvement. With an issue of this magnitude, we should have had a seat at the table, yet to vet ideas before they are made public. We should not be forced to play defense. That only creates adversarial environment, which is uncomfortable, non-productive, and unnecessary. We have said that we are willing to help Governor Hochul address the dearth of affordable housing statewide, but not at the expense of destroying the quality of life village residents have enjoyed in Nassau County for several hundred years. Nassau County is not upstate New York. No one in the state has reached out to us. The state knows nothing about our local communities. We here on Long Island have unique challenges requiring customized solutions. The Nassau County Village Officials Association is willing to work with Governor Hochul to identify potential solutions to the affordable housing dilemma. However, and I say this resolutely and with all due respect, under no circumstances will the Nassau County Village Officials Association support any effort to undermine home rule and dilute the zoning powers granted to villages in the New York State Constitution, and we will use every available resource to thwart any misguided attempt to do so.
Thank you so much. And I do want to mention one thing I left out about all of the stuff we were talking about. None of this proposed development is affordable housing. It is all market rates. So all of the discussion about how this is going to create affordable housing is nonsense. The next person up is Al Centola. Al is the president of We Love Whitestone Civic Association.
Oh, I didn't write anything because I knew everyone was going to say anything anyway. So I want to thank Paul and the Douglaston Civic for putting this together. I had a friend of mine who posted something online completely against this and said, we don't want Queens to be like Long Island. I reached out to that person and I told that person there are neighborhoods in Queens just like, quote unquote, Long Island. He's here today. He got others involved. Bonnie Parenti and Nora and everybody else, and they all came out. This is what they want to do. They want to separate us. They want us thinking that we're not the same. No, at the end of the day, we all are. People move into neighborhoods for one reason, for what they need from that neighborhood. They move into a community because it fits what they need. I've grown up, I lived in Long Island City when Long Island City was not developed. Moved to Jackson Heights, from Jackson Heights to Astoria, to Flushing, to Whitestone. Every time we moved, it was because we had specific needs. When I lived in Jackson Heights, I needed to be near the train. When I moved to Astoria, I needed to be closer to the train. When I got married and had a family and had kids, I wanted a little bit of property for them so they had a backyard, they could play, different schools, etc. As I'm getting older and I'm looking towards a 55 and older community, I'm looking more towards Long Island and 55 and older communities. They do not get to dictate to us what they change and how they change it. No. we need to stick together. We move into a community for the specifics of that community. They cannot arbitrarily change that. Our government has become a government where they want to tell us what to do, they want to tell us how to do it, and they want to force it upon us. That cannot happen. Again, all of you that came out, let's keep the fight. Paul, thank you again for putting it together, and let's not stop.
Well said, Al. Next is, I'm sorry, Tawaun, yes? Tawaun Whitty. Tawaun is from a group called Vision Long Island. And Vision Long Island actually works with governments to develop housing around rail stations. So here's what they have to say.
Okay, so before you start to boo me, please know that we do it by request only. And so that's really the reality of this. You know, we're going to keep saying the same thing, and every speaker you hear from today is going to be saying the same thing. And it's not redundant, it's duplicated. And the reason why, it's because it's from every perspective. I work for an organization, Vision Long Island. We represent Nassau and Suffolk. We work with the Nassau VOA. We work with the Suffolk VOA, who's here with us today. And it's so great that you guys from Queens invited us to be here as well, because there's always this contention that people think that we have, well, Long Island's one thing, Queens is another. To see that it's one voice in this moment is so important, and it speaks volumes to the governor. Because yes, we believe in transit-oriented development, but where it's appropriate, where it's asked for by the community. And to say that this is going to address our housing crisis on Long Island, this is a serious challenge for us, because one, you have the idea of transit-oriented development, but if you're looking for people who have lower income, they're not taking the train. So that doesn't mean necessarily just because you put the housing there and the density is there, that doesn't mean they can afford the lifestyle there. Are there grocery stores? Are there doctor's offices? Are there bus connections? Are there the ways that the community, as a person in that lifestyle, can live comfortably and affordably? And that's at any range. Not to be the difference as well, Long Island is a community of communities. Each community is like its own puzzle piece. It's unique and different, but when you put them together, that's what you get as a whole. The pieces are supposed to look different. Port Jeff looks different than Port Washington. That is intentional, that is by design. That is the character of that community. And this mandate violates that completely. It also, it's a reality. And in no way do we ever, in our planning process, when we come in, we never tell a community what they should do. We ask them what they want, we help them make it happen, and that's how you achieve goals. The governor has put together a statewide plan for other communities without asking them their input. So at the end of the day, regardless of how she's trying to achieve this goal, the process of going through and forcing a community to change in a way without their own input is where we take objection. And we have continued to say that. We will always acknowledge that, yes, there is a need for affordable housing. There's a need for housing, period. But we've had a huge influx of New York City people during COVID. That wasn't taken into account. The numbers even that they've started this process off with the inventory of what is the housing on Long Island, we caught that there are so many issues where projects that have happened over the last 10 years aren't even accounted for. So before you can address a need, you need to make sure your inventory, where you're starting, is accurate. This all needs to go back to the drawing board. It all needs to be a moment where it represents what community leaders want. And the best way to find out what is happening and what needs to be done is to go to the elected officials that we voted for in our local neighborhoods and ask them how to do this, period.
Thank you so much. And by the way, you know, Tawaun brought something up very important that I left out, which is infrastructure, right? You build, you need schools, you need school seats, police, sewers, water, roads. The governor stated, oh, I'm going to fund infrastructure. And the funding is $250 million for the whole state, to which an assembly person said to me, that's a highway overpass. We have a budget that's $227 billion. This is 1/10 of 1% for something that will generate hundreds of thousands or even millions of units. It's a joke. Next up, Bryan Block, the president of Cambria Heights Civic Association.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Paul said, my name is Bryan. I'm the president of Cambria Civic Association. I'm also the chairperson of Community Board 13. Let me just say this. What is the American dream? What is the American dream? Your home. Your home is the American dream. My parents immigrated from the Caribbean islands. My father's a veteran, Korean War, passed away, but came from the Virgin Islands. My mother's from Trinidad. She's still alive. My father worked 2 jobs. Took me as a little boy mopping banks and worked hard with my mother to purchase our house in Cambria Heights. Right now, my great-nephew is running around in the backyard. And this administration is looking to take away the backyard of my home so my little nephew cannot run around in the backyard anymore. And I can't accept that. And none of you can accept that. We've worked hard for the American dream. And we must maintain to keep the American dream. How dare they take away the American dream that our parents and you folks that are sitting here this afternoon worked for with no communication, no discussion. It's unacceptable. And I hope that all of you continue to stand up for this. I will continue to stand with Paul. It's just unbelievable what they're trying to do to us as homeowners. We're the backbone of this city. We're the ones that pay the property taxes. We're the ones paying the water bills. We're the ones that are keeping everything going. And thank you. And as I say in the church, amen. So maybe we should withhold some of that salary to some of these elected officials. And maybe I said some, and maybe we should give those checks. Maybe we should give that pay to other individuals that will represent us the way we should be represented this afternoon. I have my land use chair, Paul, with your point of order, Michael Mallia, the land use chair of Community Board 13, if you allow him to come up and say a few words, because we will be opposing on our meeting Monday night this proposal by our governor. So Paul, Michael, come up, but thank you for having me. And just remember, everyone, it's this administration trying to take away the American dream that all of you have worked so hard and has to pass on to your children. My uncle came here with his wife, my little cousin. They slept in a 1-bedroom apartment. My cousin's grown up. He has twins. He's living in Quorum. Has a backyard now with his twins running around. And now that backyard will be taken away from his twins? No way. No way. So he's done the American dream like his father, like my parents have done. And now they want to take away the American dream from my family. No way, I can't have that. And thank you for having me, Paul. And Michael, this is our land use chair, and you're going to hear from Michael Mallia, land use chair of CB13. My cousin lives in Quorum.
Thanks, Bryan. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I'm just going to touch on the one thing in Community Board 13 that's just crazy. It's the transit-oriented development. I'm sorry. So the TOD, the transit-oriented development. The proposed plan would require the MTA stations in Queens Community Board 13, located within a half-mile radius, to provide a minimum of 50 units per acre, creating an unrealistic, unattainable housing development. This predominantly single and two-family community district has fought passionately for many decades to have our neighborhood rezoned to lower density to protect our communities from overdevelopment and overcrowding. This was a community-wide effort and continues to this day. The TOD mandate would wipe away that hard-fought work in one Pence Road, while simultaneously usurping local zoning regulations, effectively destroying the suburban lifestyle the residents of Community Board 13 aspire to. And many have spent a lifetime obtaining. Sorry, I get nervous. The sheer numbers of the proposal are frankly unrealistic. In our district, the current density, the combined Rosedale and Lowellton area within a half mile of the MTA LIRR stations currently has 4,085 housing units with a density of 9.69 units per acre. To meet the 50 units per acre mandate, 21,070 units would be required. That's over a 500% increase. The numbers just don't add up. The stated goal of the TOD legislation is to create more affordable housing with easy access to mass transit. However, these newly developed units would be market rate housing. Also impacts the neighborhood's infrastructure, school enrollments, parking availability, are all factors not considered in the governor's proposal. Basically, the goal of creating additional density and near rail stations is a reasonable one to investigate, but it's best left to local municipalities to determine what's best for their communities. It's not one-size-fits-all issue. Throughout New York City, there's been a magnitude of development around transit hubs that have been developed organically with careful study, financial incentives, and community involvement. In our opinion, this TOD proposal is very problematic and outright unrealistic and must be removed from the budget.
Yeah, the numbers, not to correct Mike, the numbers are actually 7,000 for the Laurelton and Rosedale stations and a minimum of 36,000 for both stations together. So you were talking about the Laurelton station, but yeah, it's again, I'll use that word, it's bonkers, people. Okay, next. I don't know if she's here. Martha Taylor. She might be downstairs. Can we call up Martha Taylor and see if she's here? As I said, there are literally dozens of people downstairs that can't get up here. When we set this up, as of today, we had 110 RSVPs. We have at least 100 people in this room, and there's another 60 people downstairs. No, because it's for this entire space. And
Go to the next one.
yeah, we're going to go to the next one. We'll come back. The next one is Steve Wagner. He's the president of the Armour Villa Neighborhood Association in Yonkers, New York, and I was just there last night presenting it. So good timing. Oh yeah, that would be great. Yes, and if anybody who's spoken would like to go downstairs and speak to the gathered
masses.
riot mass downstairs, that would be great. So Mike and Bryan and anybody, if you want to go down there, that would be great.
I don't want to leave you with a love.
Thank you, Paul.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody, for welcoming us here. We're delighted to be here. As he said, Paul spoke to our group last night. That was a whole host of community associations from Southern Westchester, and we're all a lot smarter because of his presence. He knows his numbers, I can promise you that. We all met over the last couple of weeks. Paul and I worked together last year when this ugly issue first surfaced. We were able to swat it down. The nightmare returned, so he hit the call button and I responded. I'm here with my colleague in crime, Terry Lucadamo from the Colonial Heights Association, and we had a dozen others with us last night. We had the mayor of Yonkers who showed up, and he spoke to the issue because he had been with the governor. He expressed the strong feeling from most of the delegation in Albany, Shelley Mayer, our state senator, Nader Sayed, our assemblyman. I met with County Executive George Latimer from Westchester. His expression was, if the governor wants to hit affordable housing targets of 3% in 3 years, we can do that in Westchester County. We just can't do it in southern Westchester where the density doesn't allow for it. The infrastructure doesn't allow for it. It's just common sense. So the reality is my community dates back to being founded in 1889. Most people who came to Armour Villa escaped the density of the city. That's why they came, okay? So now the very people they're saying they want to help, they don't want to come to a community of glass canyons. There's a community in Westchester called Harrison. Beautiful community, small little shops, wonderful little Metro North station. I went there about a month and a half ago to have lunch with a friend. I could no longer see the Metro North platform because there's 6 blocks, no offense to Avalon, but 6 blocks of high-rise apartments right alongside the tracks. The only way you can see the platform is to walk between the buildings. That is not good planning. That is not good neighborhood design. So we were united last night that this is an issue that we oppose. All of the associations in southern Westchester, some are going to be coming in next week. They had to talk to their boards. And I can tell you, the Chinese have a wonderful expression when you hear about housing prices. It's dangerous opportunity. The danger is that this bill is allowed to go through. The opportunity is for all of us, the real stakeholders, to make our voices heard, to let Albany know this is a non-starter, and then begin a conversation about how to do planning properly. Thank you. We have Lawrence Park West, we have Colonial Heights, we have Mohegan Heights, we have Cedar Knolls, we have Longvale. These are all communities in southern Westchester. And in addition to that, we have the co-ops and condos. We also have Mary Marvin, who's the mayor of Bronxville. I had breakfast with her earlier in the week. And speaking of infrastructure, her comment about Governor Hochul's $250 million, she just spent $7 million for 2 blocks of piping under her streets in Bronxville. So she said, you can see how far that's going to go once we start doubling and tripling our density here. It's not meant to be, it won't happen, but you all need to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next up, we have Yiatin Chu. She is the president of the Asian Wave Alliance.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you for inviting me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Yiatin Chu, and I'm representing the Asian Wave Alliance. We are a nonpartisan political club that advocates for New York City Asian community. I'm here to strongly oppose Governor Hochul's housing proposal. Asians are the fastest growing homeowners, with 44% of Asian households in New York City owning their homes. It is the American dream to own a home, and many Asian families have chosen one-family communities in Northeast Queens and Nassau to settle down. We've chosen to invest our life savings and plant roots in these neighborhoods because of the good schools, good neighbors, and the high quality of life. That would all be destroyed by Governor Hochul's drastic housing development proposal. She's demanding that we build aggressively around all transit hubs, near subways and LIR stations. She says she'll fund infrastructure like sewage. While necessary, we have so much more to consider. Traffic congestion, lack of street parking, and already overcrowded schools, especially in Northeast Queens. Building more is going to make everyone's lives worse off. To squeeze more housing in existing homes, she wants to grant amnesty to illegal and unsafe basement and garage dwellings and incentivize building more of these living situations, all in violation of existing local zoning. Hochul is once again using her executive power to supersede the will of the people. This so-called affordable housing mandate is a gift to big developers with utter disregard to one-family homeowners in New York. We cannot let this happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up is someone who was about to step out, but I just dragged him back. Joe Marzilliano. He is the district manager for Community Board 11. Joe, come on over. Put that coffee down.
Good evening, folks. I was just trying to get some water. I've been chewing gum in the back for about 45 minutes and I got a little dry. Community Board 11 represents North Fresh Meadows, Oakland Gardens, all of Bayside, Little Neck, Douglaston, and this beautiful neighborhood that we're in tonight. Our board has already taken up this issue and passed 2 strong letters against it, both at the city level, which is happening here, and also at the state level in the state budget, which is, without mincing words, it's a bonkers. It's a bit of a doomsday device. Our board is no stranger historically to turning around and being able to increase our density over time. In the 1980s, our board upzoned in Bayside, allowing the beautiful corridor that many of you, I'm sure, have gone to for drinks over on Bell Boulevard. In the late 90s, we did another upzoning. Some areas were downzoned, some areas were upzoned. But the point is that in neighborhoods like ours in Queens and across the state, that density can be increased by the neighborhoods that choose to increase them at the time. When it's forced on us, it doesn't allow for our neighborhoods to control our ability to know our neighbors, to be able to increase in a way which preserves the culture and the dignity of those neighborhoods. This is the type of thing that we've done often, and I'm sure every one of these neighborhoods and representatives before me have done. So it's something that really sticks out in my mind. The other thing is, I'm an Italian American, and I have a saying in my family, I have about 30 first cousins. And the saying in my family is, funerals and wakes and weddings. And I wish we could get together more often than that. It's so awesome to be able to see people from New York State, Long Island, and Queens all together here. So I hope that we could do this again, hopefully for a better reason, and get together again in the future. So thank you, and if anyone would like to request, please reach out to my office, because we already put 2 letters out to the state and the city opposing these measures. So thank you again.
Okay, next up is Michael Scotland, the president of Addisleigh Park Civic Organization. I'm sorry, not the president, the immediate past president of Addisleigh Park Civic Organization. Here you go, Mike.
Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. Great. So I'm from Addisleigh Park Civic, that's in St. Albans, Queens. I used to be in South Ozone Park, and I'm a Queens guy. Grew up all my life in Queens, and in South Ozone Park, it was nice growing up there. But as life changed, I wanted to move and have more space for me and my family as I got married, and we wanted more space, backyard. Don't have to sort of compete for parking in the front and have a backyard and so forth. So I moved to Addisleigh Park in St. Albans. It was beautiful. Now, and it's a historic district, much like Douglaston. So we love the community, but it's under threat by this proposal by Hopel. We fought it off last year, and now we're fighting it again, which is purely ridiculous. Not only the fact that it's under the guise of affordability, and I'm really upset about the word affordability, because one person's affordability is not the other person's affordability. We need to create low-income housing in general for the masses in New York City, and affordable housing, just appropriate housing for everyone to sort of move and live comfortably. And you need to come to the table with stakeholders, community-based organizations, and working with the city and state legislation to actually come up with solutions. You cannot run roughshod over us and our communities by dictating mandates for us. You cannot bypass home rule. We've been doing this for many years, and we have to respect the process, respect the neighborhood, respect the people. And one of the things I wanted to say also is that, it was mentioned, this is what the government is doing. No, this is what the people that we put in those positions are doing to us. And if they continue and they don't ride with us, they will be out. Plain and simple. So there are people there are officials that support us, and we appreciate that, and we'll continue to give them their support. Those that are not supporting us in this endeavor will be out. Plain and simple.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael. Next up is Henry Euler, the president of Auburndale Improvement Association. Come on down, Henry. Uh-oh, Henry has a billboard. There's a billboard alert. He always comes prepared, that is for sure. Hi, Paul.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Henry Euler. I am the president of the Auburndale Improvement Association and also vice president of the Queens Civic Congress. I'm very proud also to be a member of Community Board 11. Oh, that's right, that helps. Thank you very much. Because we have written 2 letters, one to the mayor and one to the governor, in opposition to their proposals. The mayor in terms of get stuff built, which is terrific, thank you. And of course the governor with these terrible proposals. The main thing that's really bothering me, and I think most people, is the fact that they're doing this without consulting us. That's terrible. That's just not right at all. And they're mandating things that we don't want. So it's time, like Michael said, to throw out the ones that are not working for us and re-elect the ones that are, or elect new people as well. So I'm mailing my little poster here to Governor Hochul with a nice bow on it. I love it. And let's see what happens. Let's see if I get a response. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you, Henry. You're the best.
Thank you, Henry.
Is Reverend Thorbs here? Come on up. I have Reverend Thorbs. She is the chair of Community Board 12, but she is speaking for Reverend Thorbs, from what I understand, correct?
Good evening, everyone. I am Reverend Thorbs from South Ozone Park, South Jamaica, as we call it, Southside Queens. And I'm not standing here speaking as the chair, because we have not had an executive vote that would allow me to speak as the chair. But because I am in the district and a homeowner there, I feel that I can speak for myself and I can speak for my neighbors. A lot of my neighbors are not aware that this is going on. So that tells you so much as to how this information has been put out. Yep. If it wasn't for Mr. Graziano coming, if it wasn't for Renee Hill sounding the alarm and introducing us to Mr. Graziano, our communities would not be aware. As I sit here and I look around the room and I listen to who's here and what communities are represented, the one thing comes to mind is this is no longer a time to be always those people. This is now the time to be, we fight together, we move together. Right. Because as Michael has stated, we have people in offices that forget that they were voted in. And that's a problem. There is no way that 1 and 2 family homes should be under such a threat. Nope. Even the people living in basements, we already know what it's like in South Jamaica to have people renting out their basements and they come with 3 and 4 cars from a basement apartment. So then where is the parking? When they talk about infrastructure, there is none. Downtown Jamaica, currently, they are building apartment buildings like you've never seen before. I think we are talking about maybe 1 new school. What about the rest? What about the buses? What about, and this is just sitting in community meetings. I'm not talking about it as a chairperson, I'm just talking about it as a community person sitting in these meetings. And this is why I cannot express any longer, anymore. Everyone needs to go to their community meetings and be a part. It's just a couple of hours out of your life. It's just a couple hours out of your life. But you have a responsibility to get this information and to share it with your neighbors and to get them to understand that they too must come out. It can't get any easier being on Zoom. But we have to let the governor know this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. We cannot allow such a dastardly move to be made. Yes. Because this is not going to be the last. If this is done, then what's coming next? Right. And we cannot, it's not enough to, oh, I can move. That's not the answer. That is not the answer. As it was already stated, we have a front yard, we have a backyard, we have driveways. This is the way we want our community to stay. Mm-hmm. When I drive around Jamaica and I think about it, where are these apartment buildings going to go? St. Albans, 1 and 2 family homes, that's not the location for them. And I said to them in Albany, well, you're already doing downtown Jamaica. You've already increased the apartments there. That's not enough for them. They want more. They want more. And the conversation that we are always hearing, especially with the apartment buildings coming up in downtown Jamaica, is, oh, there's affordable housing. It's affordable. It's affordable. No, it's not. Not when a 1-bedroom apartment or a studio is $1,700. Not when to park your vehicle in the garage is $250 a month. Your car is paying rent in the garage. When in our community, they'll say, oh, we have a desert for grocery stores and this and that. You got to ask yourself why. Why is that? Because it's systematic. It's not that all those people don't want that and all those people they don't need that. It's systematic. When you take a step back and you look across the nation, in every black community, there's a problem with grocery stores, there's a problem with schools, there's a problem with transportation. It's systematic. It's not happenstance.
Not only that,
These are working folks in all of these communities, middle class, working people with jobs just like you and me. But for some reason, all of these things that they need, they're not affording. Somebody has to stand up as a neighbor and say, hey, why is it that this community can't have what they need? Why is it that they have to drive across town to find a decent grocery store? Because it's systematic. Now, what they want to give us and what they are giving us are smoke shops. Smoke shops. On every street. Smoke shops. No, listen, the drugstores, they just closed down Walgreens. But they can open up a smoke shop. That we have problems with. That's an issue. And that's something else that the community, all of us in this room, need to go back to our mayor and have a conversation and let him know this is not acceptable. Dispensaries in our neighborhoods, not acceptable. You want to disperse them all over the place? That's not what our communities are for. That's not what our communities are for. So I'm so happy to see everyone standing together. I expect more. I expect more. And South Jamaica will be here. I did come with community board member Pat Wooten, as well as Renee Hill. She just popped her head up here. She's downstairs. She's also the past chair of Community Board 12. But our community, we are concerned as well, and we stand with you.
Thank you so much. A little note, and this is a good segue to what you said, and then I'm going to go to the next person. You know, one of the things that the governor has stated over and over again is, look at what they're doing in California. Look at what they're doing in Connecticut. Look at what they're doing in Utah. And my response to that is, New York State has grown in the last 60 years, 3 million people. 3 million. That's a lot of people. 17 million to 20 million, let's more or less. California has gone from 15 million to 40 million in the same period of time. And Utah is growing 20 to 30% per decade. We are barely growing in this state. What is the need for millions of more units except to continue giving to the building industry? Next up. Yes. Very, very quickly, and again, many of you who are not from Queens don't know this, but in the 2000s, we did huge rezonings that protected our neighborhoods, but also allowed places like downtown Jamaica to have massive upzoning. So downtown Jamaica is now zoned for 40-story buildings. I mean, it's crazy what's going on in downtown Jamaica. So we already did the give and take. We did that. We said, okay, over here, develop. Over here, leave us alone. All of that, and in fact, this was also brought up last night in Yonkers, all of that is considered grandfathered. It's not being considered. We need to go forward from zero now. And that's totally unrealistic and wrong. Okay, let me go to the next person. Paul DiBenedetto, who's the president of the Bayside Historical Society, and he's here representing the Bellcourt Civic Association.
Thank you very much. How about a round of applause for Paul Graziano for putting this together today? We've relied on his expertise for many years in these situations, and he's always come through for the community. Not just his community, but our larger community. Bellcourt Civic Association. Bellcourt is in Bayside. It's about a mile to the west from here. It's a neighborhood of century-old homes, beautiful homes from the 20s and teens and 30s. We're protected by Rickard Finley covenants, just like Douglas Manor, just like Westmoreland, and just like Broadway-Flushing. But none of that will matter with this. This is a top-down approach that goes against all zoning and against any kind of deed restrictions. We're located south of 35th Avenue, to the west of Bell Boulevard, to the east of Francis Lewis Boulevard, and to the south of 39th Avenue. I'll give you an idea where we are. And just one block past 39th Avenue is the Bayside Long Island Railroad Station. So the all of Bellcourt will be put through this TOD plan. That's just one bad thing of a much larger plan that's much more issues. But the TOD alone will destroy our entire neighborhood. The density they were talking about before, when you go from 50 to 500, whatever the numbers were, any number that you propose is ridiculous. So, so it'll destroy our neighborhood. We're a diverse neighborhood, ethnically diverse neighborhood of homeowners. Someone said the American dream before. This is
Brian Block.
Brian Block, where are you, Brian? Thank you, Brian, for saying that. It's so true. We all worked. We're all working class people or middle class folks who worked their tails off to save this house. It's the biggest investment you make in your life. And I don't want to leave it. I could have moved away years ago. But we don't want to go. My wife and I, we want to stay. We raised our son here. And we want to pass it on to the next generation. It's not just for us. It's a great way of life. Why destroy it? This destroys it. We also pay the highest taxes. You know that. Single-family homes pay the highest taxes, percentage of taxes in New York City. And New York City has a nationally low percentage of single-family and low-density neighborhoods. They passed laws like this in Minneapolis. Minneapolis was like 50% single-family.
85%.
Thank you. 85% single-family. It makes sense in Minneapolis. What were the numbers for Portland?
It was over 80%.
All right. New York City has 15% zoned single family, and the usage is about 20, let's say. What would you say? Maybe 20% in use. Everywhere you see a single family house go down and you see a multifamily go up, like Flushing, which has dramatically changed, right? That happened because they were zoned for it. So there's a lot of, we have built-in zoning already that will take care of this. That's why you lose a single family house and you see this house, a bigger thing go up. Why'd that happen? Because it was zoned for it. So we already have it built in. There's no reason to do this. Thank you all for coming out today. It's great to have your support.
And thank you, Paul, also for recording this. Paul, on the side, is a guy in the film industry and sound industry, so he's really good at this. Next up is Sherry Reisner. Reisner. Sorry, she is the vice president of the Civic Association of Utopia States and happens to be Paul's son's former teacher.
That's right.
So, the other day I went to speak to the senators, the state senators, who had a hearing on Wednesday.
The budget for.
The budget, yes,
Yes.
the budget. So I'm going to read to you what I read to them, which was my letter that I actually sent to the governor and to my state senator, Senator Liu. And this is what I said. I am against the proposed upzoning of communities. I am against legalizing ADUs. The issue that is causing the lack of affordable housing will not be solved by creating apartments that could literally cause a danger to its inhabitants, stress infrastructure, and completely change the character of communities. And I gave them what I suggest is the better way of helping the housing crisis. It would be much better to build Mitchell-Lama housing. I don't know if you've ever heard of Mitchell-Lama housing, but I grew up with subsidized housing based on income. As income increases, so does rent or maintenance. If income decreases, so would rent or maintenance, depending if the building is a co-op or rental. Mitchell-Lama could be co-op or rental. It is the most equitable form of housing. It's much better than public housing. Public housing, if you make too much money, they kick you out. Here, depending on how much money you make, you can stay in the house. You make more money, you pay more rent. You make less money, you pay less rent. I grew up in a Mitchell-Lama development. It was the only way my family, my father, being a factory piece worker, could afford a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom, air-conditioned apartment. It would be much better to build affordable housing, such as Mitchell-Lama, rather than the luxury housing with a small percentage of affordable housing, affordable apartments, as is currently being built, than adding more housing to build up congestion and ruining the quality of life throughout the downstate area, or throughout the whole state. We just don't have the infrastructure to support it. Who makes out with all these buildings? The real estate developers. Somebody's getting paid off. There's no guarantee that the ADUs would guarantee affordable housing. People would be charged the high rental rates. Neighborhoods would go into more gentrification. That's what's happened. They knock down the tenements, they put up these luxury buildings, and people become homeless. They can't afford the rents. So builders get richer, the poor will lose their homes. The problem with this plan is that it doesn't look at the future impact. So what I said to them is I strongly suggest that this part of the budget be rethought and deleted from the budget. Elected officials are elected to represent the people who elected them. I believe the majority of Queens residents and most downstate residents are against this proposal. And I told them, I trust you will carry out your duty of representing us, because they're not representing us. And that's what I don't know, you didn't mention before, the rezoning that was done years ago was Paul's the one that did all that too, so thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay.
Next up is Price Olivier. Price is representing the concerned citizens of Laurelton.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for what you do. Again, I'm Price Olivier from the Concerned Citizen of Laurelton, a very nice one single family community. When I came 22 years ago, Paul helped us downzone the community because we were getting destroyed by the developers to knock down the one family house and build up a 2-family house. And when I saw that, and Kim Francis and the Concerned Citizen who band together, we got Paul help. He helped us downzone the community, which is a very good thing. It's a very good thing. Are there any elected official here? No. Well,
no, wait. There are elected officials here. Say it again. There are elected officials here. Can you raise your whoever's an elected official, please raise your hands. There were others here too, but they're not from the city. The ones who are here.
Well, what happened to the one in Queens? They disappeared. They went on vacation. Well, we want to talk to them and tell them that this cannot be thought of. Take it out of the budget. Whatever they have to do, they do not even have to think about voting about it. It is a no-go. I'm not taking too much of your time. Thank you. And we have to fight. I never thought I will see you again on the same issue.
Always on the same issue.
Thank you, Price. Mario Buonviaggio from Port Richmond Strong was unable to make it, but I have Jack Ballenbach, who is from, well, many things, Friends of Mount Manresa and a number of other groups. So if you could speak for a minute, Jack, about our friends in Staten Island.
Okay. Everyone, Paul, I can't thank Paul enough for all the work he did trying to help
into the
us. Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, I can't thank Paul enough for all the help he did on Staten Island trying to protect Mount Manresa and other areas, including the community. Unfortunately, the city shut it down. But we tried as hard as we could to try to preserve neighborhoods, as you have done in Queens, but it failed. But Staten Island has the same problems as you do. And I'm sure most of the other boroughs. So we have to stick together, we have to be unified, and we have to get the word out about what's going on here. We have to get the addresses, who to contact, People have to know this. We could put it in newspapers. What do we have to do? Send it out on emails? People have to know because it's going to destroy the quality of life of our neighborhoods. I retired from the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. I went ahead for the fight to try to save Mount Maurice. I belonged to 8 environmental groups. I ended up being on the Staten Island City Planning, and we had zoning. And what the real estate developers do, they can get variances, and they can change things. Even special district zoning can be changed. We've seen it happen in Staten Island. So with this new what Polko's doing, she's really going to destroy the communities. When you get people, being an engineer, when you get people living in houses, in attics and basements, you're overloading the circuits. You're going to have fires. Not just you're going to have congestion, but you may have fires in these houses. And that's what the most important thing is, that the safety of the public, of the people. So if you get overcrowding in neighborhoods, there's going to be a lot of hazards. We have to stick together and fight this. And if we don't, there's going to be some problems in the future. And Paul, we call Paul Revere because he's sending out the word to everyone that there's a problem out there. So we have to stick together.
I don't call myself Paul Revere, but thank you.
You are.
So we have 2 more speakers. Liz Nasinovich, she is the president of the Broadway-Flushing Homeowners Association. Liz.
Good evening. I represent the Broadway-Flushing Homeowners Association. We're in Northeast Queens. We're a small community. 1,300 homes are in the community, and we live right near the Broadway train station, hence the name Broadway-Flushing. I grew up in this neighborhood. I have been in this neighborhood since I was born. It was my dream to own a home in this neighborhood, to raise my family in this neighborhood, and this would be a disaster to our neighborhood and our way of life. People look to move, as people were saying earlier, for what they need. And we need single-family housing. We need these types of neighborhoods. They can't take them away from us. As it is, like other people were saying, we live right in the shadow of downtown Flushing, which has seen a marked increase in their density. And we have one police department precinct that services, it's the largest by geographical area police department in New York City. And it has grown so exponentially down in Flushing that we have a hard time right now getting the services and what we need from the police department. We had major flooding the last 2 falls. We had major flooding in our neighborhood. And that's just going to get worse if we keep this development up. And as people were saying, there's places where you can do this. And there's zoning for this. So we stand united with the rest of the Queens Civic Congress and all of you in this room. This would be devastating for all of us, and we call on transparency and to have open dialogues and not just this broad brushstroke of taking away our quality of life. So thank you.
Thank you, Liz. My closer, as a man close to my heart, who I've worked diligently with on a lot of issues in the last year, but we've known each other for longer than that. But the last year, he was my wingman on a lot of this stuff last year. His name is Bill Perkins, and he is from the Rosedale Civic Association, and also Vice President of the Eastern Queen Alliance as well. So, Bill? Thank you, Paul.
All right, this is what it's about. Paul, thank you so much. Of course. Tell you 2 things that this isn't. This isn't good government. Good government is a Euler process where you put an application in, you can talk with your community, you talk with your community board, your borough president, you follow a process and go to the city planning commission. Then you go to, if you're in the city of New York, you go to the city council and it approves something. That means you can upzone or downzone, but that's the process that you follow. This isn't affordable housing. because affordable housing isn't market rate in an accessory dwelling unit in the back of your house. These things aren't happening with the bill that the governor is proposing. Yesterday, and I'm from Rosedale, Rosedale residents, Cambria Heights residents, Springfield Gardens residents, Brookville residents, we went to our train stations. So you talk about these TODs, we went there. And Laurelton, I apologize, because we were at Laurelton train station. So we went to the Rosedale and Laurelton train stations. We had flyers, we talked with the residents coming down. No one knows about what's going on. Our elected officials haven't been to our civic meetings and talked to us about this. We had this conversation last year, and we were on a Zoom call the other night. There's a lady in the room here, and there she is right there. She says, isn't this deja vu all over again? Didn't we have this conversation? So we had our governor, who wasn't the elected governor, the appointed governor, bring this legislation last year. We all got together, and then that was taken off because we got a campaign we got to run. So we can't run a campaign where we're going to mess up everybody's lives who wants to live in single-family homes or live in a family with two-family homes. We can't do that when we're running a campaign. Now I'm the elected governor. I'm going to take the plan that I had last year. I'm going to ram it down your throats. Okay? Then I'm going to put it in the budget by putting $250 million for infrastructure, and which, Paul, what did you tell me? Infrastructure at $250 million?
Highway overpass.
Get you a highway overpass. And this is supposed to be for the entire state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase your density 4, 5, 6 times. Then I'm not going to give you any money for infrastructure, which means, talk about infrastructure, let's break that down a little bit here. We're talking about schools. We're talking about water. We're talking about utilities. We're talking about parking. We're talking about services, sanitation, and everything that you need. $250 million spread across the whole state. It's ridiculous. So our mantra in southeastern Queens, which is, I think, everybody's mantra here, is who's looking out for us?
Yep.
Well, Albany is it. But I am so glad to be here in this room to see everybody here, because no matter, it's not a race thing, it's not a it's not a anything other than we moved to our communities because we wanted a certain quality of life for our families.
Yes.
I've been in Rosedale for 20 years. I've raised my 3 kids there, and I want to raise my grandkids when they come there. And I don't want to raise them in multiple apartment buildings. We lived in Brooklyn. We had a great time in Brooklyn. There was somebody else up here who said we moved because we wanted a different way of life.
Bryan.
And Bryan, you did. Bryan, thank you for that.
Bryan
Because
gets the assist.
that's exactly what we did. And it took some time for us to generate the income, to save up, to move. But we did that. And I'm pretty sure everybody else I'm going to leave you with this. We can rally. We can do a lot of things. There are a couple of things that I think most of the civics are doing and many of the people are doing. We have to have our displeasure, our opposition registered. That means we have to write letters.
Yes.
So many of the civic organizations, if you haven't already, please send your letters in to the governor. Send it in to your elected officials, city and state. The next thing we need to do is be educated about what the Assembly and what the Senate has as their bills, because this all is a triumvirate. This has to be the governor's bill, must match the Assembly's bill, must match the state bill, must match the state Senate's bill. So look up on your websites tonight, look up on the Assembly, A1075. So you go A1075. Then you go to your state Senate site, and then you look up S2276. Here's what you do. You go on there and you'll read what each one of those bills looks like, and they're very similar, they're sister bills. There is a question and answer. Are you yay or nay this bill?
Nay.
And you gotta nay the bill. The interesting thing is, I went on Sunday night and it was kind of confusing. It says, are you opposed to this bill, yay or nay? Then on Monday, it was a different question to ask for yay or nay. So you gotta be careful about it. But once you go on those sites, and once you say no and you're opposed to the bill, then you can automatically send an email, and it went to my state senator. That's the way we register our opposition. It's great to get the media, it's great for us to be making sure that we're heard, but make sure that you go on those sites. Did you hear that?
Bill, what's the Assembly and the Senate bills?
Okay, the Assembly bill is A1075, and the Senate bill is S2276. Go on those sites and get
Bill, she's got it
okay,
right
she's
here.
got it right here.
This is Renee Hill.
Renee will pass you out a flyer. Yes. And listen, I'm done. I am glad to be here. Maybe I give it to Renee so she can just tell them about this?
Very quickly, yeah.
Very quick.
Yep.
Very quickly.
Thanks, Bill.
First, I want to thank Paul because I live in Addisleigh Park. I helped the land market, and Paul was there to help me. And thank God because we kept that historic district. But as we know, they want to make changes. That means a landmarked house can have 2 or 3 families in that house. So it doesn't matter what you keep the outside, but you could build to the back wherever you can't see any changes. So it impacts anyone, even those that are landmarked. So I have this, I decided to do a petition. Paul and I did a petition when the city,
Planning together.
Planning together, the city, what's his name, Corey Johnson wanted to do the same thing or something similar. And we put a petition up, we got 3,000 signatures. And it probably helped to reverse his proposal. So we have to do the same here. Yes, you have to go on to your senator's site and vote nay. And like the previous speaker said, Bill, be careful because it's tricky. I went on twice also and I'm like, wait, it changed. What did I vote the last time? Did I vote nay? So be careful, read it first and then vote, okay? Because they try to trick us. They have, if you go on again, and you'll see it's a different question.
Hey, Paul, I have a question, Paul. Wait, Bob, wait, let her finish.
Okay, so anyway, there's a petition online that everyone can sign, and hopefully you can spread the word on Facebook, on Instagram, whatever your methods, emails, and we can hopefully stop this. Thank you. Thank you.
So that is the end of our speakers, and again, thank you a million for all of you coming today. What I do want to say, folks, what I do want to say is, first of all, we did have several elected officials here, and I want to acknowledge their total opposition to this bill. First of all, I want to thank those who are here, which is obviously Nora Haagenson, who is incredible, and thank you, Nora. Elliot Conway, who is the mayor of Upper Brookville. Nora is also the mayor of Baxter Estates, next to Port Washington. Barbara Dono from the village of Plando Manor. Fadia Hill, who I think came here, is a district leader. Dennis Seary, the mayor of the village of Amityville. And Bonnie Parenti, the mayor of the village of East Williston. Now, there were other electeds here. I want to thank also Assemblymember Alicia Hyman, who came here, and she is opposed 100% to this bill. We have a list of electeds. I'm just going to run through the ones I can remember, but there's probably more. We have been reaching out to our elected officials. And those elected officials that, again, on the top of my head are Assemblyman Braunstein, who is the assemblyman for this district, has made it very clear he is opposed to this. And he's the chair of the cities committee. And he has stated he will not vote for the budget if this is being put in the budget. State Senator Toby Stavisky came out with an extremely strong statement today. Very, very strong statement in her total opposition and demanded that it be removed from the budget. We have State Senator Leroy Comrie, who also came out very strongly against this a few days ago. There is Westchester County legislator James Nolan, who I met last night, who stated his opposition, tremendous opposition. We have Assemblyman Jake Blumenkrantz, the 15th Assembly District in Oyster Bay, who is totally opposed to this. Senator Jack Martins, who is completely opposed to this. And there are many others that I don't want to announce. There are people, however, sorry? Has he come out? No. Oh, I can't say, I only know the ones who have stated their opposition. Why don't you call him?
Assembly Alicia Hyman that just left this meeting stopped me on the steps
and says, I oppose this.
Yes.
I said, well, let the community know.
Yes.
Because we sure don't know that you do.
Right, right.
And also Vicky Palladino.
Yes, I was about.
Vicky does.